Welcome to Deeply Unscripted. I'm your host, Clarissa Medina, a cognitive behavioral practitioner helping people break free from limiting beliefs through rewiring thought patterns. By using these methods, I facilitate an individual stepping into true transformation. Another excellent way to spark transformation and personal growth is through authentic conversations that challenge us to upgrade our thinking and perspectives. Here on the podcast, we explore profound subject matter and make room for a diversity of viewpoints. In doing so, we create a community that honors everyone right where they are in their own compelling story. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Briana McCallum, the heart behind lmht.org, a platform dedicated to fostering mental health awareness and advocacy. Briana is a powerhouse in the world of emotional well being, working to break stigmas and empower individuals through education, support, and resources. In this conversation, we'll explore her journey, her passion for mental health, and the impact of her work. So, Briana, I just want to welcome you to the show. One thing Briana and I have figured out is that we can talk for hours and do our best to not rabbit trail today. I will let Briana just give a little introduction before we start the interview. I'll let her give a little introduction about herself and what she does, and then we'll begin. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Briana, and I'm owner of LMH Custom Teas and Herbs LLC. And I have Divine Empowerment Coaching, which is a division of LMHT. And what I do is I'm a holistic health and wellness company, and I help others learn exactly what the right path for them is in their sustainability journey for health and wellness, whether that's mental health, physical health, or spiritual health, which is the trinity that I work in. My belief is that you need all three of those things to be in alignment to really be on a sustainable path. And I do that using alternative medicine and holistic health options such as energy work, diet, and exercise. I do blend teas as well, and a whole host of other modalities.
All right, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. The first question, the only question, and that is Briana's work beautifully blends spirituality, holistic healing, and mental awareness. Can you share a defining moment, the defining moment, or a series of defining moments in your journey that led you to integrate these practices into your work and basically what you're doing now when you work with clients?
And I think I'm gonna work in reverse order for that because it was a series of moments, and I'm gonna do it in reverse order because I now recognize that what I'm doing now, all of these other defining moments were my training almost to get to where I am, who I am now, and what I'm doing. What that's looked like for me is the most recent evolution, the divine empowerment coaching, was getting my life coaching certification. I went through separation and preparation for divorce back in 2020, divorced in 2021. And in that process, I was going through my own healing and therapy and transitioning to being a single mom and getting into my own space and figuring out what I'm going to do with my business because I had three businesses that were intermingled with my ex-husband. And in that process, when I really got to a point a year and a half ago, closer to 2 years ago now, where I was doing really well in therapy and I'm open about what I'm going through, sharing my journey with folks. I had three different people in a 1 week period tell me that I should consider doing something in a therapeutic field or coaching or counseling or something along those lines. I said, actually, you know what? That's a good idea because I've worked in different therapeutic modalities since I was 17. And I'll get into that as I go further in the story. But when I got my life coaching certification, it really tied everything in together with me because I'm now in a network of thousands of other people that also are like us that just genuinely want to make the world a better place. They really want to help people and are just trying to figure out the right route to go about doing that. And it was overwhelming, but in the best kind of way because I realized I'm really not alone. In my small town, it may be 1 out of 10 that you meet that really just has a true, genuine heart. All of these people did in this group. So it pushed me forward in a different way because they all challenged me and they all asked me questions. What are you doing? And how do all these things go together? It doesn't make sense. You're doing Reiki and you're doing tea and you're doing coaching and you're doing divination. It doesn't make sense. But I knew in my heart that it all goes together. It's all a part of the same package, same brand is what I would call it now. As I grew with my community and we coached each other as a part of our certification and figured out what I was doing, that's how I fell into divine empowerment coaching and recognizing that all of these things that have happened to me that have developed my spirituality, that have developed in me dealing with my own mental health challenges and my own physical challenges over the years. And I'll get into that here shortly. That is what created all of this. It was all of that work together. And I realized, wow, I have what, over 20 years worth of knowledge now from my own research. Because when I started this journey, you couldn't just hop on the internet and research whatever you want and get 1,000 different resources. You had to go look it up. Or you may have a couple of companies that guide you, but the world was not what it is now. So that was the biggest changing point for me recently, is realizing that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Just helping people step into their power, helping people move forward in a way that's not only sustainable for the route that they're going, but feels pure to them and feels uplifting. And it's been a long journey for me. So that's something that I'm very passionate about helping other people do. And I'll take a breather break for a minute before I go into the other steps.
One thing that I have noticed, you mentioned the community that you have found within this space. I call it the coaching, consulting, counseling space, just for lack of a better word. My experience has been the same. And I love that you mentioned that you found people that were on the same path in terms of service to others and bringing other people into freedom, that you found a community of people that really want to make the world a better place. I have to say that has been my exact experience. That's actually part of the reason I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know that's part of the reason you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because the confirmation through these other people. I want to say right out of the gate, and I've said this before on this podcast, that I think that experience should have happened in the church. I think the church should have stewarded its position in the earth to bring freedom to people. But instead, what has happened is the church has wanted to control people, and it has excluded people that weren't like whatever the flavor of beliefs the particular church was. I think it's across all denominations. It has not brought the freedom that has been intended for all of humanity, regardless of whether they are believers or not. So my personal experience in this wellness community, it's restored my faith in humanity. I'm actually seeing a huge collective of people that are interested in bringing up the consciousness of humanity. Individuals have been transformed and they have freedom, and now they're going and they're finding other people that need to have freedom in some area of their life. If you want to make a comment about how that experience has helped you along the way, feel free.
Yes, absolutely. I do. I've been on a mission lately to help bridge some of that divide. I grew up in the Bible Belt in the southeastern United States. I've seen it over and over again, and I look a little different, and I've always been a little different. I tried to conform for a while. I just generally wasn't accepted at churches, and I'm a big proponent of the What Would Jesus Do movement. I would love for that to come back, because his teachings were that everyone comes to the table to eat, and we flow together through community and uplifting each other and teaching each other and holding each other accountable and guiding one another. And it's through love and connection that we really make a pathway forward, not through division, not through judgment. That's not our job, to judge others. It's not what we're supposed to do. And I've had some very interesting experiences recently in churches. I think that everybody's got it right to some degree. The spiritual crowd has their own stuff that they're doing that the church could really take a look at and learn from. And the church has a lot of things that they do that the spiritual crowd could learn from as well. I had my first time ever experiencing this at a church where I was able to talk about the Reiki and energy work that I do and the divination that I do, and not be demonized or judged or looked down on, and it be a genuine curiosity. Now, I took the time to really let folks get to know me in the church first before I showed them all of that. Let me let them understand who I am, even though it's a part of me, so they understand where I come from. 'Cause I work for God and archangels. What I do, everyone's on their path for a reason, and that's important. They have their own lessons they need to learn. If that means going off the rails for a while and going on some crazy adventures, and that's what brings them their wisdom, okay, that's their path. It's not my job to judge them. It was interesting to me to be able to be in this environment and talking about it and having everyone genuinely come through with curiosity, and to be able to say the things I just said to you and it be received in such a positive way. And to have questions like, when you're doing this stuff, how do you know that you're not like working with a demon or a dark entity? Like, how do you know when you're praying that you're not praying to a dark entity or a demon? I can feel it. It's really that simple. That was a class that I was doing a beta launch for my wellness workshops I'm looking to develop in the next year that covers my Trinity model of wellness. And that was the spirituality portion. So in there, obviously, I catered it more to the Christian crowd, but a big part of that was to teach spirituality in general. We all have different ways of experiencing spirit, whatever that is to us, great spirit, divine, God, whatever we call that energy. I look at it like having different languages. How each person describes it, that's their language. Christians have their own language, and then they have different dialects within that language as well. It's like going to South America. When you go to different areas, they may speak the same language, but have some different slang. The same thing in my eyes. But I was very impressed by how receptive everyone was to it and how I was not shunned from the church afterwards. There was still plenty of normal interaction like we have now. But I want to see that change. Where I'm at, you're seeing a lot of churches that are having to shut their doors because they're not getting enough attendance. I feel like a lot of pastors are having trouble understanding that a lot of that judgment and the hellfire and brimstone and all that nonsense is pushing people away because they're being awakened a lot more to some of the power and control that went into Roman Catholicism and the Christian movements, some of the aspects of divinity in the Bible that were rewritten. We were made in the image of God. We all have divinity flowing through us. Jesus
Sure.
taught us we're able to do the same types of things that he is able to do. We just have to tap into that part of ourselves, but that's been erased and it's not uplifted anymore. Whereas in global cultures, you have to go through some sort of spiritual experience where you connect directly to divine and your higher self, or you're not considered a man or a woman. That's required.
Wow. Mhm. I'm glad to see, because I'm witnessing the same thing in my neck of the woods, the things that we've been taught that were new age or of the occult, whatever those words mean, because those words mean different things to different people. People are starting to understand that there is positivity in some of these modalities because they're bringing healing and they're bringing freedom. I like to remind people darkness doesn't want people to be healed. Whatever you wanna call it. If you wanna call it the demonic, if you wanna call it dark energy, if you wanna call it the system of darkness, whatever you wanna call it, it's not into freedom. It's not into bringing people into health and wholeness. But if you experience health and wholeness through any modality, that is 100% God. It doesn't matter if you've been programmed to believe otherwise, culturally conditioned to believe otherwise. Having said that, the work that you're doing, how you do your energy work and how your clients, what type of healing are you bringing them into? What is it they're looking for? Sometimes maybe they don't even know.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'll get into the other stasis points in my journey. Just a final comment on what you said. One of my favorite inappropriate jokes when people start talking about the occult is, listen, Jesus was a wizard. The man walked on water and turned water into water. Did you see what he did?
Don't forget the shape shifting that he did.
Shape shifting. That's right. That's all relevant. A lot of clients will come to me not knowing what they want or they need. They're attracted to what I do. It's more organic and energy based and law of attraction. They're searching for me, I'm searching for them, and we come into each other's paths or through referrals. I'll have people come in and say, hey, I heard about you and I'm interested in what you do, but I have no clue what I need. Here's what I'm going through. That's different for different people. But the way I developed this Trinity model was because way back when I started my first business, my first adult business that was legally registered and all that, not like the hobby businesses, LMH Custom Teas and Herbs, I was doing the work I'm doing now and not charging people for it. I was doing it for free, a lot of free consulting. That's how I found that mind, body, and spiritual trinity as I'm getting into what type of tea do you want? What do you need it for? Let's start with your flavor profile. What things do you like? Now I know your flavors you enjoy. Okay, what do you want this for? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Need it for meditation? Is this for something that has to do with losing weight or gaining weight? Whatever their thing is, as we started digging into that, I found all these different connection points because I can give you tea all day long. But if you're not dealing with whatever the root cause of your issue is, it's just tea. I can do energy healing on you, but sitting like this all day long, going to the chiropractor and then fixing it. And then you do the same thing for 2 days. And you're like, man, the chiropractor didn't actually fix my neck. No, you're doing the same thing that caused the issue to begin with. As I started getting into that more and seeing that pattern, that's how I ended up developing what I'm doing now because I was watching people go through the same stuff. Or we get the physical and the mental in check and they're having good patterns, but they're still having a lot of trouble. When I started getting more into my spiritual path, people would start asking questions, and that's where the spirituality came in. I said, I really have a spiritual practice. And that's always a fun one because a lot of people do and they don't realize it. Because even if you are an atheist, you don't believe in God, spirituality, none of that stuff, you think it's all nonsense. But when you go out in the woods and go camping and you sit in front of a campfire and you're listening to music and you just feel pure and blissful and free, that's your equivalent of a spiritual experience. Not everybody recognizes that. Religion is man made, spirituality is God made. Those are two very different things. So it looks different for different people. If they're more into the holistic health and wellness side of things, that's typically more of the physical and mental first. We look at their diet. We look at allergies. We look at, do you have any autoimmune disorders? Do you have a history of high blood pressure? Same things you would do at a doctor, just getting their history, what they already know, what things they've already done to figure out what's happening. Have you been to doctors? Have you been to specialists? Have you run tests? Are you interested in running tests? Because I do have people I can outsource and have blood tests run as well and do professional analysis. And we dive into it in that direction. And then we just create a pathway based off of that client's specific needs. When it comes to mental health, really that's tied into everything because whatever we're going through impacts our mental health. That's the key to everything. Our brains, that's our supercomputer. And we are the programmers. So whatever commands we give our brain, that's what's gonna give us. So you have the quadriplegic that got in a bad car accident and is always smiling and happy, but suddenly couldn't use their limbs and they're still smiling and happy. How in the world can you do that? But this person over here that lost a finger is always negative about that one little thing. Mindset thing. One person that gives their program to find the good, find gratitude. We're gonna see the ways that we can improve and not see ourselves as victims. We're not a victim of circumstances unless we choose to be. We're going to be powerful in this space. If we change our mindset, change our perspective, when we change the way we see things, we change the way that we live. Change the way you think, everything changes from there. We dive into that a lot. I don't like to use mental illness because I don't consider it an illness. The things that we experience, even if they are chronic with mental health, that feels like a victim mindset again. No, we can work through this. We'll turn that symptom into a superpower. Looking at what's your routine like? How are you taking care of your mind? What are you doing to unlock your creativity? What are you doing for rest? What are you doing for stress? What's your community like? Do you have connections? Do you have a support system? We tie back into things like diet. The spiritual side of things, it slides in unless somebody specifically comes like, I'm interested in this Reiki stuff. Or like you, when we talk about it, there's always been somebody doing Reiki around you, but you've never done it. It's like, all right, Reiki's been floating around you long enough. And that's, to me, that was all the confirmation I needed that I'm just going to give you a session. Let's do it because clearly you need to experience it and you haven't yet. Sometimes it looks like that. I'll just pick up on the cues. I call them downloads. I'll get a sudden image, a word, or vision. Sometimes I'll hear someone's spirit guide or divinity speaking in some way because it's not in my thought voice. I don't know if you have a thought voice, but I do.
Yeah, you're right.
It'll be this sudden thing that's completely out of context. I was thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about that person. This innate knowing comes into me. This is what needs to be done with this person. Other times I've been having trouble in my spiritual path. I don't know what's going on with me. I have this weight on me all the time. I almost feel like I have an attachment. I have clear attachments for people multiple times. I've done entity removals from homes. I've done energy healings for people that have had injuries or who have chronic illness as well. I've done a lot for things like anxiety and depression or for people going through awakenings.
So I know what you mean when you say Trinity model of wellness, but just in case anybody listening isn't sure what that is, would you explain when you're saying Trinity model of wellness, what you mean by that?
My Trinity model of wellness is mind, body, and spiritual health. Typically speaking, most holistic health practitioners will work in those three realms, and they're going to work with more natural or God-given things when it comes to food and lifestyle and energy and spirituality. It's your spiritual health, your mental health, and your physical health. That's my trinity that I work in. We look at those broad categories, and then we branch out from there based off of your needs.
Now, a question just came to mind, and I've heard different people say different things, so I'll just ask your opinion. I've heard people say that we are a spirit having a physical body experience. I've heard people say we are a physical body having a spiritual experience. I've heard people say we are a soul with a spirit having a physical body experience. What would you say?
I'd say those are all accurate in their own regards. Okay. I look at the ascension pathways, right? So you have ascended masters and what that looks like. An ascended master is someone who is able to transcend this physical body. They can live in the physical body, but they're not bound by it. Some of these monks that can sit in snow and with the power of their mind, they can melt snow around them up to 6 feet, right? They're beyond the limitations of the physical body, or someone who has trained themselves to be completely detached from the outcome of anything and everything. People, no matter what happens to them, they're always peaceful because they understand that you can't take these things with you. Ultimately, it's not about what we go through, it's what we do with those experiences.
Like Jesus.
I have a friend who calls herself a Jesusite, and I like that. I used to call myself an omniist, which is someone who can see the truth and value in all belief systems and spiritual practices. She called herself a Jesusite and explained what that meant to her. That really resonated with me. I'm not a big fan of the Christian religion. I go to church, I sing choir, I've been a part of churches my whole life. It's really the teachings of Jesus. I think I'm adopting the Jesusite as
Yeah.
well.
He came and modeled the way that a human can operate in the earth, not subject to the laws of physics, not subject to any earthly law, but is in 100% divine union with the Father, with the source of divinity. Again, whatever terms you want to call it.
Yep.
So that's our example. If we can untether ourselves from all of the earthly, not so that we aren't effective here in the earth, but if you can't get your biology under control, under governance, then it's going to be hard to govern anything outside of your biology.
Exactly. We are players in this game of life as well. You have to consider the consequences of your actions and your choices because some people can live the nomad life and they're perfectly fine with that and they'll make all the impacts that they need to feel fulfilled in their life, but not everybody is meant to walk that path. There is a consideration of that balance. I've seen people that get so far into the woo, they lose touch with reality, and then the other way around in our society and culture is changing, where they're so stuck in the here and the now that they're completely forgetting about divinity. But there's so much that can happen for you as opposed to happening to you when you just trust and have faith. Faith is not, it's not questioning and it's not doubtful. That's the whole point of faith is you have faith that everything happens exactly as it should, when it should. We're young beings in this physical body and we're still learning. So yeah, we're going to throw tantrums sometimes and we're not going to be able to see the big picture and not understand what's going on. And that's okay. That's totally fine.
Everybody's got to have a first response. As long as you just don't stay there. If your first response is a tantrum, then I've heard you say this before, move that energy out, get it out. And now, what's your second response going to be?
That's it. You use the right term, which is response. So you can react or you can respond. And we're going to have some shock factor when hard things happen to us. That's normal. We are living in a human body. So when you have a human response, be compassionate with yourself. Even if you get to that ascension point where nothing bothers you, it doesn't matter what happens, that's awesome. Be compassionate and go through those growing pains. They're not called growing pains for nothing, and learn the wisdom. When we repeat the same cycle over and over again, we're obviously not learning. How we gain that wisdom is we look at whatever happened instead of staying in that victim mentality. If you shift that just a little bit, how did this happen for me? You can go through your grief process. It doesn't mean this was actually a great thing that happened.
You can still call it bad and learn something from it.
Exactly.
Better yourself.
I'll use my own example. I went through abuse as a child. It was awful and it still impacts me in a lot of ways negatively. When I was in my early 20s, I got out of that victim mentality. I'm not being in the cycle anymore of accepting dysfunction and toxicity. But I had to keep going through those cycles because I was conditioned at a young age to accept dysfunction. As soon as I flipped that mentality of how did that happen for me, it changed everything because I am a much stronger person now because of that. There are plenty of other ways I could have become stronger, and I would have much rather had the healthy ways.
Some consequences happen because of choices we've made, and then other things just happen because of a choice somebody else has made, and we end up getting a consequence because of their choice.
And that was mine. I got the consequences of someone else's choice, so I couldn't control the hand I was dealt. I could control how I played that hand, and it took me a long time to really figure it out. That was a game changer for me. And circling back around to the faith aspect, you do have to have faith that it'll work out because we can attract all the nonsense that we don't want when we're so heavily focused on it. That's all you're programming your brain to look for that things happen. Now your brain's job is to find proof of that. That's programming that you said was the command. Bad things happen to me. Brain's like, okay, cool, let's find it. But if we shift that and use pronoia, the belief that everything conspires in your favor, as opposed to paranoia, when we change that perspective, even the shitty, awful, frustrating, unfortunate things that happen, find the good in. New version of me, you know what? I'm in the situation regardless. I can choose how I react or respond.
You talking about that, it makes me think I have a friend of mine. He has trained himself anytime a crappy situation happens, he starts asking, "Okay, universe, send me what I need."
Yeah.
He has trained himself. That has become his first response.
And that is brilliant.
I need to remember that the next time that something, whether it's unplanned, regardless, okay, send me what I need. Please send me what I need to help me through this situation.
I like that's his instant response. I want to get to that. I will get to that point as well of instant response. It's a good one. It makes a difference. Pray about it. My belief is prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God. If you're going to pray, that's great, but you need to actually listen to the message.
Exactly.
It used to be I would pray and it took me forever to get a response or a message, but I now think I probably wasn't really listening. I think I was listening for the answer I wanted. Or not in quiet heart is what I call it now. If I'm not fully in quiet heart and fully listening and being present, I'm not going to hear the answer in the same way.
I know we talked about this before. I've been training my youngest son when he starts acting funky, when he starts getting a stinky attitude and getting all caught up in negative feels and I hate everything and everything is stupid. I'm like, you got to start taking responsibility for that energy that you're carrying around. He's an empath, 100%. He picks up on everything. I said, just like you're picking up on everything, you carry something too. So take responsibility for the energy that you are walking around with and what you are projecting out. When I explained it to him in terms of how he perceives it, he had never thought about the fact that he's putting out something that other people can perceive.
Yeah.
But when I explained it to him like that, it all started to make sense. I won't say that we've got it under perfect control, but it's at least planting the seed that you're carrying around something that you're responsible for. Get it
Yeah.
under control. It's much easier to start learning now than to wait until you're 35 and you're still having little tantrums.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been using that since you mentioned that to me on my daughter now. She's 8, but she's like in that almost teenage know-it-all phase or I already know no matter what I tell her, even if I've never told her before, she already knows. We had a lot of conversations about choice. You can be angry and not be disrespectful. That's an option. You're choosing to respond instead of react. She's actually getting really big on energy. I do like that verbiage.
From the session that I did with you, I know that at one point you mentioned the higher self.
Mhm.
I asked you, when you say higher self, is that the form of me that is the original design, my original design without trauma that I've experienced throughout life? Can you talk about, we all have a higher self that we can learn from. I know you have much more experience with that than I do, for sure. Can you expound upon that a little bit as far as the energy work goes?
I can. In regards to our higher selves, that is the spiritual form of ourselves in the chakra world. They talk about the crown chakra, and in some belief systems, you have up to 24 of the linear vertical chakras, and then you can have hundreds, or in some belief systems, thousands that are lesser chakras that exist in a grid around us. I really like those chakra system beliefs that pull above the crown chakra and move into soul star and even go farther above that, where it's our pure divine nature. So we have our physical body and our third eye for our intuition that listens to our crown chakra, and the crown chakra opens up to our higher selves and our spiritual selves. And it is the pure energetic form of ourselves. And as that continues up, then you have a closer and closer connection to divinity and more disconnect from this physical world. That's why they call it ascension, because you're ascending into those higher forms of self. And when it comes to energy work, what I do is I tap into someone's higher self. It is the most direct and clear route to get to whatever ailment is there, because an individual's higher self is the pure form of them. It's attached to them all the time. It's been attached to them their whole lives. It doesn't have all of this nonsense up here that gets in our way. It bogs us down. It's a direct path to divinity. I have a whole prayer that I do usually internally when I do work on folks, and I ask to tap into their higher self, and I ask for God and archangels to come in and protect in that moment and to help guide me and help me connect cleanly and purely to this person's higher self, and that nothing and no one that would do harm intentionally or unintentionally may come into the space or interfere with the process, and put up some protections. I always want to make sure to put those protections in place so that nothing could come in. The higher self is almost like its own person, but it's also connected to us. I picture it as streams of light. So like our higher self just floating up here above us, and there's these connection points if we tap in and if we remain connected that come in through our body and extend out. That's where having spiritual experiences, whatever that looks like for each individual, is so important because the more we attune to that side of ourselves, the easier it is to tap into universal energy, God, whatever you call it. That version of self, it can tap into source and hurt
Right.
that space. That's its realm. The more we train that part, just like the more we train a muscle, the stronger it gets. The more we train ourselves to be able to just tap into spirit, we create clear pathways.
Would you say that is really the goal of every person is to develop into their higher self, or that is the person that is interacting here in the earthly realm?
Essentially. And the way I look at it through my role, because I'm a catalyst. So what I do is I catalyze people, and a catalyst can send an electric shock, or it can be a spark that starts a fire. It depends on the person and what they have. But around me, whatever that unfinished baggage is, or whatever things are holding people back, I ignite them. God made me. Like, that's a part of what I do. I now know it's because I'm supposed to help people with that. There's a lot of neuroscience behind that, the psychology of memories and rewriting our narratives. And from a spiritual perspective, we are earthly beings living in this world, but we're so much more than that. If we're not tapped into our divine version of ourselves, we're just like hamsters in a cage spinning around on wheels. And some people are happy with that. That's fine. No judgment. If that's your thing and you want to stay there and you are in ignorance is bliss, believe me, sometimes I would love to have my ignorance back because it is blissful.
It's like staying plugged into the matrix.
Yeah, if you want to be in the matrix, stay plugged in. No problem. That's your thing. However, even though it can be challenging, it's so freeing to be able to be out of it and above it. And the types of things that I've been able to create in my world from being more tapped into my higher self, it's amazing. You see it in some religious communities too, the people that are so tapped into God and they are tapped into their higher selves. That's where you see a lot of miracles happen. I do believe that some of the religious constructs mold us in ways that really still keep us down. And a lot of these powers, gifts, whatever you want to call them, that I have, everyone has the ability to do these types of things. I get frustrated with the gatekeepers of knowledge like that, or the ones that are living in the matrix and playing the game. I need you to give me $3,000 so I can teach you how to do this. There needs to be a balance. I'll charge $1,000 for my coaching if we're coaching once a week for an hour to an hour and a half a day and all the things that I'm doing there, but not for ascension. I find it fascinating that so many people walk around powerless with so much power sitting in them. Some people are innately even more powerful without even doing anything.
I 100% believe that coaches and consultants should be able to make a living doing this.
Okay.
But I definitely agree with you. And I've had more than one uncomfortable conversation with various practitioners that have elevated the cost, where basically what they've done is they've just created another system that is only available to the ultra wealthy, the rich. And I'm like, how is that any different than Western medicine?
Yeah.
How is that any different than psychology, where the psychiatrists are charging $300 or $400 an hour? You've just created another system that not everybody can access, because if everybody can't access it, or if you're looking for ultra elite clients, why are you looking for ultra elite clients? The vision that God gave me for my practice is that everybody deserves mental health. Everybody deserves proper identity. I have more than one naturopath friend, and I know several naturopaths that I would probably say I am not friends with, but I'm aware of their practice. I actually had one tell me, "Oh, it would be very expensive for you to see me." And I thought, you have no idea what my financial situation is, for one thing.
Already felt judgy.
But for another thing, why would you brag about that? I'm sure you became a naturopath because you believe in the practice of naturopathy. Why would you not want to make that available for everybody? If you have to come up with a sliding scale, if you need to barter, collaborate, whatever, but just work with somebody to make it accessible, because otherwise all you're doing is you're just creating another system of medicine that not everybody can access.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that you said because I've probably done easily $10,000 worth of free coaching, consultation, spiritual mentorship readings, a lot of the things I do now, and even some of my higher cost items. I've had people tell me, you're one of them, tell me, oh, I would pay double what
Yeah.
I'm charging for it. And I feel so uncomfortable with that because I think about my journey is when I really didn't have money and I would have looked at that. There's no way.
Right. Yes.
I wouldn't have even considered it. I found the happy medium because I do want to cater to wealthier clientele so that I can have more time and freedom to do more of the free and low cost
Pro bono.
yeah,
Exactly.
and not be struggling myself because I have no debt anymore. I'm actually now calling it investment. My debt was actually a lot of investments into mine and my daughter's future in a lot of ways.
Bills are real. Rent is real. House payments are real. I totally get it. I totally get wanting to make money and wanting to be successful. There's got to be a balance. There's just got to be a balance.
The people that do that, they may be a part of the change, but they're not necessarily a part of the movement.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Good place in their value, but
Right.
it does need to be accessible. And I get why people do that because a lot of folks will come in and they just want everything for free. When we're doing
Sure. Right.
relating with that's not realistic.
My mind always goes to the perfect end or the perfect example of a thing. That's why I do everything that I do. That's why I want to be in touch with my higher self, because I don't want to spend any more time attached to earthly trauma and pain and activity. What do you think humanity, society, culture, as we head toward more of a tipping point? Because this movement is real. This movement is real. The deconstruction movement in the church is real. And these dreams are combining. The deconstruction movement is helping people see that a lot of what you were culturally conditioned to believe was bad and evil is actually not bad and evil, and it deserves honor. These streams are going to come together at some point down the road. But what do you think humanity looks like as that tipping point gets reached and more people are becoming more self-actualized? They're elevating their own consciousness, because all of those spheres, all those people's bubbles are gonna start bumping into each other, and you're gonna see a change. I just would like to know what you think that looks like in the earth.
Hmm. I think we've already seen it quite a bit. The times that you've seen more combustion points that ended in not necessarily cohesion. You use the word bubbles, so we'll stick with that. You see some bubbles that run into each other and they pop, and there's just soapy mess everywhere. And you see some bubbles that run into each other and they stick together and they form this big bubbly mass. And then you'll even see some that all form together into this larger bubble that keeps growing and growing. We've been seeing lots of those types of formations happen. So COVID was a good example. There was a lot of popping that happened there. There were a lot of big bubbly masses and messes. But ultimately afterward, a lot of expansion happened. I saw so many healers and people just being awakened after that time period. We're starting to see it again right now with everything that's happening in politics and in the world as a whole. I view it as all a part of the course. Some people are starting to really wake up to it, but I also don't think it's what people have made it out to be. I don't think there's going to be this mass death. There have been lots of death, but I don't think it's going to be this sudden mass death and ascension. I think there are some that die because they're being added to the heavenly ranks, so to speak, the spiritual ranks. I think that there are soldiers here, spiritual soldiers that are intended to build up the change. And I am curious what paradise is going to look like. I don't believe that there's one big event or that all of these things are isolated from one another. I do truly believe that these are all a part of the pathways that we're being pushed to grow and evolve and learn. The construction of the church, and I know a lot of people are going to be really uncomfortable with this, but the construction of the church, that didn't come from Jesus. Jesus was anti-establishment. That was not his thing. And the church was formed through a lot of really bloody crusades and slaughtering. There are multiple stories in the Bible about Jesus and his creations and all of the things that he did along the way that were doing the same things that healers over time that were persecuted were doing. A lot of this started with the Roman Catholics. That's where the conquest really started shifting out. And there's the death toll. You have generational trauma, and you have church that is built on blood and built on stolen land.
Yes.
Of course, it's going to be deconstructed. It's a hot mess to begin with. And I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack for this. That is a system that needs to be torn down and
Yes.
reconstructed. And that's where we all need to come together and be able to shift in a different way. And the people that I work with and my people, we're always looking to uplift others. And we look to heal, we look to help. And that's constantly what we're looking to give more, whatever that is. Can I help you make more money? Can I help you feel more comfortable? Can I give you some sort of love and kindness and care because you're having a tough time? Or can I help you succeed in some way? That's what we do. And
Add more value.
add more value. And that's what the world is intended to be. And it's not. And that's been created by man. Man can also reverse that, but we have to think outside of ourselves. So there's a balance in it. We can't be so focused on self that we lose sight of this whole world of people that we have here. We have that balance between I need to take care of myself because if my cup is full, I can really pour out a lot more stuff.
Exactly.
But not may your cup overfloweth because you're only pouring in your own cup.
That's good. This first conversation, I'm calling it a first conversation because there is definitely going to be a part two. There's so many topics that I want to cover that we haven't covered because that would be like a marathon podcast.
Yeah.
But Briana is somebody that you're going to see on Deeply Unscripted numerous times. I think she's a wealth of knowledge. I love her opinions and her perspectives. Getting to know her has been one of the biggest joys since I came into this consulting, coaching space. If I didn't meet anybody else after this, meeting her would have made it so freaking worth it. She's somebody that even increases my own consciousness and upgrades my own consciousness. We are set to have many more conversations. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I hope it's given you some points to think about. I hope it's given you some inspiration. And how can folks get a hold of you? I don't want to forget that. How can folks find if they want to work with you or if they want to order delicious tea?
The two fastest ways. One is to go to my website. That's LMHT, like the drink, lmhtea.org. On the top of every landing page, you'll see book a free consult with me so you can book an actual time where you have my full attention. We can do it on video, we can do it on a call, however you want to do it. And we'll sit down for 30 minutes and chat. Or if you wanted to do coaching with me and you already know that, you can reach out to me directly. When you come on the website, depending on if you're on mobile or on a laptop, there should be like a little bubble or like a little hamburger thing. You can click and it'll give you a lot of different options. You can message me, you can call me, you can email me. But if you already know you definitely want to work with me, I would call, or you can just go ahead and book that consult because we're going to do a discovery call with you anyways. And you'll get a questionnaire when you book with me as well. And you can enter in whatever information you need. Just, hey, I saw you on the podcast with Clarissa, and I know that I definitely want to work with you. I'd love to have a Reiki session, and I can go ahead and send you all the information you need for that as well. And if you do want to order tea, something to keep in mind, don't just look at my website and be like, oh, these aren't really my types of tea. I've made over 350 blends customized to different people. That's another good thing for reaching out to me with a consult is I can definitely find you something. And if not, I'll custom blend it for you.
If you book that consultation with her, you are going to be open and personable and so dang easy to talk to. So again, I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation and I hope you will tune in to part two. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. And until next time, you guys take care.